When discussing the groundbreaking architectural designs of Moshe Safdie, the word iconic does not seem adequate. Each building design by this internationally acclaimed architect beautifully reflects and embodies the spirit and purpose for which it was built. In the movie Crazy Rich Asians, Safdie's monumental Marina Bay Sands integrated resort on the Singapore waterfront virtually becomes a main character. Completed in 2011, the three 55-story towers of the hotel are connected by the breathtaking elevated Sky Park, featuring cantilevered spaces, a one-of-a-kind infinity-edge pool, gardens, restaurants, and a public observation deck. Safdie was born in Haifa on July 14, 1938, in what was then the British Mandate of Palestine. His Sephardic Jewish family was of Syrian and Lebanese descent. In 1954, his family moved to Montreal, where in 1961, Safdie received his master's degree in architecture from McGill University. After apprenticing with Louis Kahn in Philadelphia, Safdie returned to Montreal to oversee the master plan for the Expo 67 World's Fair. He later established his own firm in order to undertake the design and construction of Habitat 67, an adaptation of his undergraduate thesis and major theme exhibition of the fair. A landmark demonstration project, it pioneered a vision for urban housing using the technology of prefabricated construction. As a breakthrough building type that continues to resonate today, Habitat 67 creates a vital neighborhood with open spaces, garden terraces, and many other amenities typically reserved for the single-family home, adapted to a high-density city environment. Each of the 158 units had its own roof garden, while pedestrian bridges and elevated streets, now a signature to many of his designs, add public space and contribute to community building. Internationally recognized, Habitat 67 is considered a major development in urban architecture. Hallmarks of Safdie's buildings are dramatic curves, light, water, and open public and green spaces. Embracing a comprehensive and humane design philosophy in his buildings and writings, he has always stressed the importance of meaningful spaces that enhance community and the need to understand the essence of a particular locale's geography and culture. With huge multi-use buildings in Singapore and China, Safdie has continued to work at the mega scale. Today's megacities have densities 30, 40, and 50 times what cities were 100 years ago.
These kinds of densities threaten everything we love about life, daylight, a sense of identity, a sense of view.
We haven't got a clue, Safdie says, about how to deploy tall buildings into wholesome, workable urbanism. Safdie is being modest. Other architects may not have a clue, but he certainly does. His buildings preserve and amplify the fundamental things that make human life worth living. Safdie's best-known works include the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles, 30 years in the making and woven into the landscape of the Santa Monica Mountains. Yad Vashem Holocaust History Museum in Jerusalem. The Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts in Kansas City, Missouri. The National Gallery of Canada in Ottawa. The United States Institute of Peace Headquarters on the Mall in Washington, D.C. The Khalsa Heritage Center, the National Museum of the Sikh People in Punjab, India. And Crystal Bridges Museum of American Arts in Bentonville, Arkansas, founded by Walmart heiress Alice Walton. Most recently, Safdie's work has been spotlighted for Jewel Changi Airport, a new building typology that combines two environments, an intense marketplace and a paradise garden, to reimagine the center of an airport as a major public realm. Set to fully open later this year, Raffles City Chongqing, a mixed-use development of over 800,000 square meters of housing, office, retail, transportation, and hotel programs, will include a diversely programmed 300-meter-long sky bridge, set to be the highest in the world at the time of completion. Safdie has taught at McGill, Ben-Gurion, and Yale universities, and after moving his firm's offices to Boston in 1978, became director of the Urban Design Program at Harvard University's Graduate School of Design. An architect, urban planner, educator, theorist, and author, Safdie has published 7 books on architecture and garnered numerous awards, honorary degrees, and civilian honors, including the Companion of the Order of Canada, the Gold Medal of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Smithsonian Institute of National Design. Recently, he was awarded the Wolf Prize in Architecture for a career motivated by the social concerns of architecture and formal experimentation. So what do you call an individual who designs only iconic buildings? A Liberty Science-centered genius. Moshe, Liberty Science Center is pleased to bestow on you the 2020 Genius Award.
I'm deeply honored to receive this award. In fact, I think architect is one of those disciplines where art and science fuse together. It is impossible to draw a line. I've always been disturbed by this separation of art and science as a mode of thinking. Nothing is more inspiring than seeing how fitness to purpose evolves both in the organic and inorganic world. And so it is this inspiration by science that makes me so happy to receive this award and wish on all the young people who are going forward, science should be a basic building block of your education, no matter what you want to do later in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Moshe. We often tell young people that careers aren't straight and narrow, that you can learn from your failures and make mistakes. What failures or mistakes have you learned from?
When I began my work as an architect, I became very interested in the Platonic solids, in complex geometry of space packing, and it had a lot of impact on my work in the sense that I began playing around with the geometries as I designed buildings. And so a brief moment, I designed a number of buildings were completely formalist in the sense that they somehow forgot that there's a program to be solved. I designed a school in which each class was a different level. As you moved from place to place, you were just changing levels every moment. I was obsessed with how geometry was pure and workable. And when I thought back some years later, I thought, how crazy was that? Does it really make sense to have a school where everybody's changing levels every time they change classes or go to the gym? So here's a good example of sort of getting obsessed as an architect with some formal idea which sets you astray, but then hopefully you see the bigger picture, you see the light. Architecture is all about balancing things, not getting obsessed with one thing.
By the way, I was obsessed with Habitat 67. My parents took me to Montreal at Expo 67 when I was 11 years old.
Oh, you went there? That's wonderful.
I remember it well. Could you riff for a moment on what you think your profession is doing well and what it needs to do better?
I think my profession, as a generalization, you got to lump a lot of ideas and schools of thought together, has two major faults. It is still obsessed, we used the word obsessed before, with formalism, with form making for its own sake, with less regard to the livability, to the life intended in a building as a major forming element in the design, and are prone to sensationalism. I think another problem with our profession is that they've kind of given up on the big picture. It used to be that you could not put forward an architectural concept without somehow having a reciprocal urban concept. How do individual buildings create a city? How do they aggregate and compound to be something greater than the individual parts? And I think we must reaffirm our commitment to the city as a whole, to the environment we live in.
Has the pandemic affected your thinking about architecture?
The pandemic has actually reaffirmed some of my ideas and concepts about architecture. And I will elaborate. I got a call from a friend who lives in New York. She's an eminent city planner. She lives in a luxury apartment on the West Side. And in the middle of the pandemic, she calls me, she says, I'm going crazy. I'm in this luxury building. I can't open the windows. I don't have a balcony. I can't go out. There must be a law. You must have openable windows. You must have a balcony as a minimum, if not a bigger outdoor space. And I said, oh, really? You know, I've been saying that for 50 years. For everyone, a garden. Every dwelling must have a reciprocal outdoor space. But apart from that, I think that through the pandemic, some people have said, oh, from now on, people will want to work home. We don't need to have office buildings. We don't have to get together. We can have all these meetings all through the internet, and that's it, all virtual. I've learned that the opposite is true during the pandemic. Yes, we worked successfully, 80 people here in this office, virtually for several months. But when it came to real creativity, to having to create new designs, to have to get together, brainstorm, make models, we had to get physically together. It didn't work otherwise. So I come out of a pandemic with a conclusion that A, there's no replacement for face-to-face interaction. And the other conclusion is the public realm is really important. The places in the city that bring us together, they are very important, and they ought to be better than the malls. They ought to go back to the richness of indoor and outdoor and parks and gathering places full of culture and commerce and other activities, not single-use shopping centers as a substitution for what stands for public realm.
Thank you, Moshe. That's very inspiring.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it as well.